Hey guys, this is Zach with Next Tech News, and I'm finally getting to my full comprehensive review of the Lazer3D LZ7 Mini ITX case. I'm going to build a couple different configurations of computers inside of this case to really put it through its paces, so hang along for the ride. So as you can see, I'm going to be using the Asus Z270i Strix motherboard for these builds, paired with 16 gigs of HyperX RAM, an i7 7700K, a SanDisk 1TB SSD, a GTX 1060 Mini, a Silverstone 120mm slim water cooler, an HD Plex DC-to-DC power supply, a Reven RC101B Brontes Mini ITX cooler, and a Silverstone 500W SFX power supply. So the first stumble I had with this case was with the HD Plex power supply, which is something you have to use if you want to use an air cooler this tall. But anyways, the issue I had was when you put the HD Plex power supply in using the side panel, you cannot use a fan in the front. Otherwise, the HD Plex does not line up with the mounting holes on the side panel, because it's designed to be flush up against this side panel and the fan gets in the way of that. But the best thing about this case ended up solving my issue. This case has a ridiculous amount of different configurations, as you can see from this overclocker's configurator. But because this case is so configurable, they actually gave me another option for the HD Plex. There is a different panel for the HD Plex to be mounted inside the case on the other side, as you see here. This replaces the dual SSD panel and limits you to one SSD, which in this build wasn't a big deal for me because this build only required one SSD. The other nice thing about this case that I realized is that anytime you're having difficulty fitting a part in or anything like that, you can easily just take off that side panel, put your part in, and then put the side panel back on, so it makes it really easy to fit a lot of components in this small case. In my first build in this case, I discovered that with this configuration in the Lazer LZ7, you get a crazy amount of airflow for such a small case. The Zotac GTX 1060 Mini gets plenty of airflow from the side grille, and I have the 140mm fan blowing air right into the Cryorig M9, which performed great in this configuration. If you did a similar build to this as well, you could even add more airflow by adding a 92mm fan or an 80mm fan right here. For a 7-liter case, this is extremely impressive. Once I got the 120mm radiator installed, I tried pairing it with a normal 120mm fan, but sadly the case would not shut with a normal size fan, so I swapped it for a slim fan, and that worked perfectly. So if you are thinking of building in this case, keep two things in mind. If you want to water cool in this case, you must use a DC to DC power supply, like the HD Plex that I am using, and you must think through which 120mm radiator you are going to use, because depending on the tubing and fan, it may not fit. It really is amazing that a water cooler can fit inside a case that is about the same size as most modern day consoles. And what's even more amazing is the fact that you can have a water cooler in this case without having to sacrifice something else like a lot of other small form factor cases would. As you can see here, when you decide to use an SFX power supply, you end up needing to swap out the rear panel to support the different PSU. The Reven low-profile cooler ended up working out perfectly for this build. It fit under the SFX power supply with some airflow room to spare, which is exactly what you want in this configuration. Wire management in this configuration was much more difficult and quite a bit messier. So, if you value wire management, I would suggest using an HD Plex regardless of the cooler you choose for your PC. I used this top panel in this configuration because this is the panel designed for an SFX PSU, but you can also use the previous top panel that actually allows for a little bit more airflow regardless of the configuration. I think this configuration came out pretty good. If you need the higher wattage that only an SFX power supply can supply, then this is definitely the configuration you'd want to choose. And as you can see, the Reven cooler has plenty of room for airflow below the SFX power supply. So after assembling 3 different build configurations in this case, I feel like I have showed off the best feature of the case, which is its versatility. The Lazer3D LZ7 case has so many different configurations that not only can you meet any design theme, it can also be quite the powerhouse with very few sacrifices made. And that is the name of the game when it comes to small form factor cases. The guys at Lazer3D definitely know what they are doing. They laser cut all their panels out of acrylic and now even wood, and can even laser etch a panel, though this isn't a service they are providing yet. Sadly, the wood option is only available for one side panel though, but I think it would be amazing if they eventually allow you to choose wood for any and every panel in the case. Can you imagine an all-wood LZ7? That would be so sweet. The joints are all 3D printed, and honestly the case feels extremely solid, even though it's almost entirely plastic, excluding the one walnut panel. The case is very tiny, and you will be shocked how much can fit in it. It's also extremely portable, and would be a great case for LAN parties if people still do that. But I would highly recommend not to travel long distance with it. Because of its acrylic and plastic construction, I just don't trust it to hold up inside of luggage. Overall, this is a great case that is honestly hard to have a complaint about. To anyone interested in a no-compromise small form factor case, I would highly recommend the Lazer3D LZ7 case. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the Lazer3D LZ7 case. It's honestly one of my favorite cases I've reviewed on the channel so far, and it's just really nice because it's so configurable. As you can see from mine, it matches this setup perfectly, and you can definitely do the same because, again, it's so configurable. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Zach with Next Tech News. See ya!